Welcome to another installment of Through the Bible in 1 Year Bible Study with your host, Heavenly Sunshine. Um, Such as it is, I mean, this has got to be the most bare bones Bible study or video on YouTube or any of the platforms. I mean, this is just, you got somebody here who doesn't know how to do anything technically as far as, producing a video or anything, and it really shows. I was looking at myself in my latest video study. Um, Man, do I look old. Seems like in the last year I've aged 5 years, and it just goes to show uh, we're not supposed to live on this earth forever. Okay, not anymore. God's going to create a new heaven and a new earth. And man, I'm getting so old now. I can't even believe I look at myself and I can't believe that's me anymore. I mean, the way I talk, the way I look. I'm just a couple clicks behind Joe Biden, and that's pretty bad. I mean, that guy doesn't even know where he is most of the time, seems like. And uh, they say he's too old to prosecute for his crimes, but he's not too old to be president. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like most of the stuff the atheistic left believes in, it's a pile of nonsense. Joe Biden, personally, I have zero respect for the man. If he truly had any ounce of love for this country, even in his advanced age, he would recognize the condition he's in and that he's no longer able to govern, and he would do the right thing and he would step down from office. But he's not going to do that because he's being paid handsomely to do what he's doing. He's obviously not calling the shots. Somebody else is telling him what to say, what to do, when and where. And whenever he needs a boost, there's been reports of, for a State of the Union or something, they give him some sort of amphetamine like stimulant to speak and to be able to function. Um, this is why we have to pray for our country daily until this man is removed from office. Satan's going to go after the most precious things of this earth. Satan's going to try to thwart God's kingdom from coming on this earth. And we've got to be either on God's side or the world's side. It's just that simple. The book of Genesis has taught us that we are all, as believers, strangers and pilgrims in this world on our way to heaven. But we have to follow God as long as we're in this world till we get there. Okay. Abraham was told to sojourn in the land of Canaan, as was Isaac through a dream from God, as was Jacob. And then Jacob married, continuing the line of faithful, excuse me. I can't even speak anymore. I'm too old. So if you're here today, congratulations. You're a real student of the Bible because you're putting aside, you're not chasing after someone who's multi-talented or has great looks or is rich or expertise. You're chasing after truth. That's what it seems like to me. So congratulations. Okay, so we're actually, I had envisioned starting from around I think we've made it up to chapter 40 of Genesis. So at the risk of going long in my little political speech there and worrying too much about what's happening in this world, I need to get down to the purpose of this video, which is a continuing study of God's Word. We're trying to get through the King James Bible in a Bible study in 1 year. We started about the first week of January, so we're up to chapter 40. There's been tons of lessons I've probably skipped over. I trust you have your own research and study that you do on your own, and you don't take anything I say but with a grain of salt. And hopefully, I'll bring up something that will help you or inspire you to do your own Bible study. Okay, so here we are. We're going to start here at Genesis chapter 40. Now, in fact, let me go back a chapter here to set the stage for what's happened. Jacob, by this time, we learned God appeared to him several times throughout at key points in his life and led him back to the land of his ancestors, the land of Padan Aram or Padam Aram, however it's pronounced. I am not sure, to be honest. Anyway, he took a wife as per his father's request from the people of the land of Padan Aram, as opposed to taking a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Okay, the earth was still Noah's flood has already occurred and so on, but still, in all, Earth and the civilization on the Earth was relatively young, even though there were nations well established, numerous nations by this time. Speaking in the general sense, Earth, the civilized Earth, was still relatively young. Okay. God did fulfill his promise to Abraham to make his seed, his descendants, a great nation, and even his promise to Ishmael and his lineage, which was continuing in Esau. So we have a contrast of two styles here. One person is living by their wits and by their expertise in the physical realm, so to speak, earthly, with their earthly talents, represented by Ishmael and Esau, and the other person represented by Isaac and Jacob, walking through this world by faith, which is the example we're trying to follow in following Jesus Christ. Okay, so anyway, Jacob ended up getting 4 wives, from his relatives in the land of Padan Aram. He started out, from Canaan, and went back to his people as per his father's Isaac's request to obtain a wife from there. He got his uncle Laban had 2 daughters, Leah and Rachel, who each had a handmaid. I believe Leah's handmaid was named Bilhah, and Rachel's handmaid was named Zilpah. He had children by all 4 of those women. Ended up having 12 sons in total and 1 daughter. And they had children, of course. And by the time the children of Israel, who was Jacob, who was later deemed and called by God to change his name to Israel, which means governor of God. The name Jacob means someone who's a supplanter or a wheeler-dealer. God came to him and said, the angel wrestled with Jacob and said, your name is no longer Jacob, your name is Israel, because you've wrestled with God and man and you've prevailed, he says. So God was with him. God was on Jacob's side all the way. Esau, not so much, but it seems like God was playing favorites. But then again, if you look at the attitude of the 2 men, one was more secular and one was more a lover and a simple, humble follower of God, which was Jacob. Esau was more like a rough and ready, self-made type of guy who didn't put spiritual things first, but put his natural life more, deemed that more important. But God blessed both of them, actually. He made both of them a great nation. In fact, Genesis 37 goes into all the different princes that came out of the line of Esau. And Esau went on to be one of the fathers of the Arab nations, which became Edom, and Elam, which were very powerful nations in their time, rivaling the land of Egypt. Now, we all mostly hear about Egypt because it seems like Egypt left the most artifacts behind. Obviously the pyramids and other things like that are more spectacular. But Elam, in its time, Edom was a juggernaut of a nation, and in fact, the same area that Elam was came Babylon later on, and some significant nations. So anyway, coming up here. So let's go to. So if we go back to, you got 38, and then we got 37. 36 is where it talks about the generations of Esau, who is Edom. So God, true to what he said to Abraham, but also to one of Abraham's wives, Hagar, who ended up having a child. And it really wasn't 100% her idea. It was actually Sarah and Abraham's idea to have a child through here because they wanted children, and they hadn't had any, and they were getting advanced in years, and they didn't think they were going to have one. So Sarah ended up saying to Abraham, "Hey, take my handmaid uh, Hagar, and have a children through her, and we'll have a child, an adopted son through her, I guess." And so that's what happened. She bore Abraham a son named Ishmael. Okay, so who was a wild man, and said every man's hand was against him, and he was against every man. That's kind of a good summary of how the Arab nations have been, especially with the advent of Islam. So that's kind of a good description of the Arabic nations, in my estimation. So anyway, it says here we are in 36, where it talks about these, Ishmael's descendant Esau. It says these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom, and the word, both of those names, Esau and Edom, mean red. He got that name because he came in from the field one day, and Jacob was eating some red lentils, and he hadn't had anything to eat. He came back from hunting. Hunting was his thing. Jacob's thing was more of just says dwelling in tents and kind of a homebody. But anyway, he came back from hunting, and he said, "Man, I'm hungry. Give me some of those lentils you're cooking there." And Jacob, just spur of the moment, said, "Okay, I will, but you got to promise me you're going to give me your inheritance." And Esau said, "My inheritance?" He goes, "What good is my inheritance?" "Yeah, I'll give you my inheritance. I'm about ready to starve to death." And so Jacob goes, "Okay, swear to me." And so he swore by the Lord. It shows how little Esau had concern for his inheritance, his godly inheritance from his grandfather Abraham and his father Isaac, and how much the contrary attitude of Jacob. So Jacob said, "Okay, here you go. Here's the pot of lentils. Enjoy." He goes, "Thanks for," and he swore by the God of Abraham. "Yeah, I swear by the God of Abraham, I'll give you my inheritance." Blah blah blah. Well, came out later on that Jacob ended up getting the blessing that Esau should have gotten as the eldest child. So, did God choose Esau, or did Jacob choose God? Which one, or both? A little of both, So anyway, Esau had these children just like Jacob did, and they all became what this is a term I haven't heard in many years, but it's being used here in the 36th chapter. Dukes. They became princes, and aka dukes of various realms here. And it goes on to list all these children who came from Esau, who became dukes or rulers of their respective lands. So that's chapter 36. So God cares about the whole world. even the secular world. God is this is God's world, even if they don't want to believe in God. It's still God's world. So chapter 37, the story picks up following Jacob. Then Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, as was his father. Abraham was a stranger in the land of Canaan, so was Isaac, and now Jacob is called to be a stranger in the land of Canaan, the promised land, just as we're called to be strangers on this earth that we're living in right now as believers in Christ. We're not to emulate the ways of this world. And I started off this video talking about Joe Biden. He's a perfect example of how this world is corrupt and how this world is not godly, but it's every man for himself in this world, despite the smiling faces they put on and the twisted logic they present to you that, hey, we're not evil, we're doing this for your good and so forth. It all boils down to their lining their pockets and seeking more power for themselves. They could care less about the welfare of this country. It's the total opposite attitude of we should have as Christians. So how any person can call themselves a Christian and support the current corrupt communistic globalistic cabal that is our government right now. I don't see it. Okay, so anyway, just as it gave the generations of Esau, now it's giving the generations of Jacob. So now Jacob had 12 sons and one daughter. Okay, he says in verse 3 here, now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. Actually, that's not completely 100% true, because he did have a son who was even younger named Benjamin. Both of his youngest sons came from Rachel, the woman he really loved and that he agreed to serve his uncle Laban many years for so he could marry. He ended up serving 7 years and marrying Leah, and then 7 more years and marrying Rachel. Altogether, he served Laban for 20 years, and Laban kind of changed he had an agreement with Laban, and Laban kind of changed his wages, and Jacob said, "You've changed my wages about 10 times," so anyway, he has these kids. Joseph was like his 11th child, I believe. Benjamin was his youngest at 12. But it says here, at this time at least, Israel loved Joseph because he was the youngest. He was the son of his old age. So these two kids that came along, Joseph and Benjamin, came from their mother Rachel, who had no children up to that point. So I'm sure that's what it's saying here is, so they held a special place in his heart. It ended up that Jacob made him a coat of many colors. Now, you couldn't just go to the store. Back in those days, there was no J.C. Penney's or Montgomery Ward's or somewhere, or the Gap or wherever we buy clothes from today, where you could just go and buy a shirt of any color you want. We can today, thanks to American capitalism, by the way, and technology that we've advanced. Anyway, so to have a coat of many colors was no doubt something very special back in that day. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. So there's this guy Joseph, the 11th child. There's 4 different mothers among these guys. I think 5 or 6 of them were from Leah, 2 or 3 of them were from Bilhah, 2 of them were from Zilpah, and 2 of them, Joseph and Benjamin, were from Rachel, who at first was barren, and she was about to go out of her mind with grief, but she ended up, finally, after many years, ended up having 2 of her children of her own. But anyway, so now we enter the time where Joseph, the Lord starts working in Joseph's life as a leader for the nation of Israel. And the Lord starts off by giving Joseph a couple of dreams. So God speaks through dreams, visions, dreams and visions, and I've had that in my life, and I know many Christians have myself. Nothing as profound as what Joseph had, but uh, I have had those times when I felt God gave me some guidance or even protected me from some dangers in my own life. Okay, so, um, and I think God appeared to, I don't think, I know God appeared to Jacob several times in dreams. Um, and as he did so, Jacob began to realize, hey, that's what my life's all about. It's about God. It was not about tricking people and trying to obtain this or that, or it's about knowing God. And God's the one who gives me who blesses my life, not what I can do. And God is my life. Not there's no other reason for me to be living. And finally, by this time, Jacob was a very spiritually minded man, where he didn't necessarily start out that way. Esau, maybe not so much, although God is faithful, and as I just pointed out, he kept his promises even to Esau. Okay, so I'm running a little bit long. I wanted to go longer than this, but well, let me just finish this here and then we'll wrap it up. So, anyway, he had a dream, and he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, he's talking to his 10 other brothers now. They're all working in the field for good old dad now. They're out keeping the sheep or whatever they're doing. And he says, behold, we were binding sheaves in the field. And lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood around about and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him, yet the more for his dreams and for his words. So God's kind of setting up a situation here. It may seem like it's a human situation, but God's the one who gave the dream, is he not? And he dreamed yet another dream and told it to his brethren and says, behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Even Jacob was saying, hey, come on, Joseph, you're going a little bit, you knock it off with the crazy dreams, shall you? You're making everybody angry. Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brethren envied him. Once envy enters the picture, envy, of course, is the sin of the devil. And once envy enters a relationship, it's a bad sign. But his father observed the saying, just like Jesus said some things to Mary and Joseph when he was found in the temple with the teachers. And he said, didn't you know I'm supposed to be about my father's business? And they said, come on, Jesus. But it said that his mother and his father, his mother, Mary, kept that saying in her heart. Just like his father took note of it. He said, even though they didn't like to hear it. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem, and it ended up that his brothers took him and threw him in a pit, and he got sold to a passing band of nomads who says there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. So here he is, his brethren envied him for his father's favoritism and these dreams he said he had, and they threw him in a pit, and then they made up a story to their father that we found his coat, and they slaughtered a goat, and I think they dipped his coat in the blood of the goat, and they told his father, we think he got killed by wild animals. And so poor Jacob heard this and started crying and said, man, my son Joseph, he's gone, So what a terrible thing they did. But it was all of God. Ultimately, this we'll find out later. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, "For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning." Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's. Wow. So he got bought by an officer of the Pharaoh. It's funny how God can change things just like that, isn't it? Praise God. And captain of the guard. So we'll learn more about this fascinating story of Joseph and the children of Israel up until the time they finally leave Egypt several hundred years later. But that's coming up in the future. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining. God bless you.